What's going on, YouTube? Quick starting video on playing over changes for beginners. And I don't want to make this too long, but I want to kind of start getting into the playing over the changes idea a little bit. And here's just a real intro for it. So a breakthrough I had the other day with it is about it's all about where you're landing, and just making sure when that next chord comes around that you're not still lingering around on that the last chord. And I think that was my problem, is that I just wasn't really getting there, like anticipating it, right? It's like it would get there, and then I'm on G now, I better get to G, right? No, you gotta think ahead a little bit, right? Because that's really the key to it. So, or at least for beginning with it, and what I've discovered. So let's just kind of get into it. Here, let's use a very simple progression. Let's just go with D, and let's sit on D for a minute. Then let's say C, G, back to D. C, G, back to D, okay? So we're going to keep it D major, C major, G major, which is technically in G major. It's technically D mixolydian is really the way you would view it, because it starts on D. It's the chords that are found within G major, but you're starting in on a D, so D feels like home. So in my mind, I'm going to view that as D mixolydian, right? I'm using the notes of G major, but D is going to be where it's going to always resolve, right? That note sounds home, right? I'm playing a G major scale shape-wise, but here that's what sounds like home, my D note, right? So that's why I'm going to call that D mixolydian. So really, I think the biggest thing to get from this, hopefully if you're beginning, is keeping these boxes in the same position for now, and trying to find the sound with the least amount of jumping around as possible. So if we're going to say D, C to G, we're going to use this D major box, right, first. We're going to use this box, right? And then if we're going to say C, we got this C right here. We should use this box because it's pretty close by. And then we have our G, obviously, right here at the 3rd fret. Right? Back to D. Right? So let's just do it in time here. And this gets into another lesson I'm going to make about how anytime you're practicing, you should be thinking of a chord progression and hearing that instead of like noodling. And John Mayer goes into that. It's really cool, and it's something I always did, and it was really cool to hear him like articulate that that's like the smart way to practice, because I always thought that too. I always thought, like, why just noodle if I can like hear the chord progression in my head, right? So let's start this out. We're gonna keep still over D, still now G. Oh, wrong order. I took the blues order. Back to D. C. G. D. C. G. Okay, now what I like to do, and it's hard, I'm like trying to talk and play at the same time. I guess I should just play and then talk, but I'm just kind of trying to show you in real time how my brain is looking at it here, even though it's giving you a more sloppy example by doing so, but at the same time, hopefully, by me trying to talk it out, you're kind of seeing what I'm thinking in real time there. So going back to that idea of what I'm thinking, a lot of the time the way my brain is working is I'm viewing this D shape, this C shape, and this G shape, and I'm looking at which notes are different. So for instance, right off the bat, I see this note, right, which is going to be a, obviously the note is a B, but I mean, we're going to be on our 4th fret on the G string. But by just looking at the pattern of it, right, without even knowing what note that is, I can see that that's not in my C chord, right? So right away, my brain's going to go, if I'm on, like if I'm thinking when I get to that C, I'm looking at that G pattern thinking, okay, because it's going to share a lot of notes, right? The G is a perfect note to take into account, right? That's in your C major set, or your C major shape right there, but it's also in your G major shape right there, right? So that G note, to me, like that's a note, obviously you can ride through that whole part there, but if you're trying to make it sound like you're playing the changes, I would actually avoid that note right there. I'd accentuate that change there and take the note that changes, right? So the note that you know that changes is going to be the C to the B. So if you're playing, so changing that note there in that situation is a great idea, because that's now you're clearly no longer playing over that C, right? You're now you're outlining that G much more so. Now remember that note, that B note, that's still in your C major scale. So you're not playing anything that outside the box, right? So like, I just want to remind people, kind of going back to my scales versus chord changes idea, that sometimes some of this can be a little overthinking it, in my opinion, right? And I feel like I can get a more organic flow by just kind of viewing this in like a D mixo, right? Which is also going to be G major, which is really only going to, it's going to be the same as your C scale, except it's going to have F sharp instead of F, right? But long story short is that your B is still in there. Still, that note is still there. So, I don't know. This is all personal taste and stuff I'm talking about right now, and contextualization. When it really comes down to it, as Robin Ford said, you're still playing the same thing no matter how you say it, right? It doesn't matter how you talk about it. So, people like to get in the comments and be like, no, you need to view it this way, that way, this way. To me, none of that really matters, like, to be honest with you. Like, that B note, that's there, man. That's in the scale. It's in the G major chord. Why you're playing it is pretty insignificant to me. Like, so I don't know. Like, to me, it's just once again cluttering your mind. I try to take the clutter out. But with that being said, if you're gonna play over the changes in this way, I do think it helps you accentuate that sound by spotting those spots like we just looked at, where it goes from the C to the B, and spotting a note like that is no longer in the chord, like an actual 1, 3, or 5 of that chord coming up, right? So I hope that helps a little bit with just like a beginning to this approach. There's some really cool sounds you can get from this approach that you can't get from playing from a scale, because you're gonna hit money notes every single time for the most part. You're also, if the chords are sitting long enough, you're going to have a chance to sound like you are revolving around a different tonal center, especially if you're going to play like a blues or a country or a rockabilly type of progression, where you're going to go 1, 4 back to 1, to really just take that 4 and that's your new tonal center there, so that that really starts to get into sounding like a little bit different, right? So anyway, I hope this helps. Yeah, you guys know me, I'm just ranting. Much love, you guys. Like, subscribe, share. I will see you on the flip, and peace. Keep on picking.